There were hundreds of people out on the streets today, and it was an amazing thing to see. There were parents, there were children, there were special needs assistants, there were teachers, and there were principals. And it was a proud day to be Irish. It was a day to be proud of the resilience of the Irish people, faced with, I think what we would all agree, are horrendous cuts. I spoke with Carol and her daughter Katie. Katie's deaf, and with the use of technology and her special needs assistant, she is fully integrated into mainstream education and is going to have, hopefully, a fantastic education. I spoke to another mother from Bray who asked for her name not to be used, and her son Cian. Cian is autistic and suffers from attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. The only way Cian can go to school is with his SNA, and to date, he has had that SNA. He only gets 2 hours a day. His mother his mother had to give up her job to mind him the rest of the time. But thank God, due to the introduction of the SNAs and the policy of mainstreaming, Cian is able to go to school. His mother is still waiting for confirmation as to whether or not Cian will have support in September. The protest today made it very real that the issue of SNAs affects the most vulnerable people in our society. It affects the parents of children with special needs and, of course, the children themselves. And I think it's fair to say that every deputy in the House, while some may disagree on points, agrees that it's an extremely serious topic. Now, I'd like to address the government's counter-motion, which is what ultimately we're going to vote on in about 10 minutes. The motion focuses exclusively on the positives, and there are positives. There are a lot of positives over the last few years in this area. What the motion doesn't do is get to the heart, I believe, of why the technical group tabled this motion, certainly why I'm involved, which is the fact that 272 SNA posts are going to be lost. I've spoken to the SNA teachers whose posts are going to be lost. That is a reality. There's also no acknowledgement of the fear that's out there. Today was a fantastic protest. We had face painting, we had balloons, we had some good speeches, but there's also a fear. And I'm sorry to say that the government's motion and Deputy Sherlock's comments did not address the real fear that is out there, and I wish the government would address that. And finally, I'd like to say, reading through the government's motion, the government is hiding behind the IMF here. The quote from the government's motion is as follows. The Dáil Éireann notes that the cap on special needs assistance was introduced by the previous government when Ireland entered the programme of financial support with the EU and the IMF. Now, the government has made great play of saying that it has changed various terms. It has reversed the minimum wage reduction, which is obviously a good thing. But that also means that the government has room to manoeuvre here. So I would ask the government to stop hiding behind the IMF on this issue. I'd like to talk briefly to our motion. There are a lot of teachers or ex-teachers and principals in the House, and I bow absolutely to their superior knowledge of the intricacies of the special needs assistance schemes and the various changes that can be made to make the scheme even better. My background is in financial analysis and public sector reform, and my observations are as follows. In terms of the money, 272 SNA posts costs about €10 million a year. When you factor in the social welfare costs of those 272, because they're all being made redundant, we're probably talking about €5 million per year. In September, the government is going to write a cheque for €706 million to unguaranteed, anonymous Anglo bondholders. That cheque would pay for the 272 posts for the next 140 years. So in terms of priority, I would urge the government, I would plea with the government to look at the very, very small costs involved. Look at the real fear out there and the real benefit that that extra €5 million can bring, and change their position.
Ask the Deputy to conclude his remarks, please.
Thank you, Les Kencur. I will conclude. This should be a good news story. There have been fantastic changes made over the next few years, and there have been changes suggested in the chamber here today that need to be made. But it is turning very quickly into a bad news story. It is turning from what can be a fantastic thing into a cut on the most vulnerable people in our society that really does not need to be made. So I'd say two things to the government and to the government deputies before they vote on their motion. First, please stop hiding behind the IMF on this issue. Second, please acknowledge the pain and the fear that is out there and that has been caused by the proposed cut of 272 posts. And third, please reallocate the funding. It is a tiny, tiny amount of money. The protest today was something to be proud of. Our SNAs and this system and the potential that it can have is something to be proud of. So I would urge the government, it is within its power. It is a small amount of money that can make a huge difference. Please reconsider your position and reinstate the posts and let the parents and the principals and the teachers and the children know now so that they don't spend the next few months wondering whether or not their children are going to be able to attend school in September. Thank you.